The stars looked different from this side of the galaxy. Jake Morrison pressed his hand against the cold window of the research ship and stared at the planet below. Kelvar Prime was a green and blue world covered in thick forests and deep oceans. It looked peaceful from up here, but Jake knew looks could be wrong. He had been in space for 3 years now, visiting strange worlds and meeting alien races. Some were friendly, some were not. The Kelvari were somewhere in the middle. They had only started talking to the Galactic Council 6 months ago, and nobody knew much about them yet. Captain Linda Hayes walked into the room. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been commanding ships for 20 years and had seen more of the galaxy than most people could imagine. "Ready for tomorrow?" she asked. Jake nodded. "As ready as I can be. What do we know about them again?" Linda pulled up a screen on her datapad. "The Kelvari are predators. They stand about 8 feet tall, covered in fur, very strong. They hunt in packs and have a strict social order based on strength and fighting skill. They respect power and direct communication." "Sounds friendly," Jake said with a slight smile. "They can be. Just remember to stand your ground. Show weakness and they will walk all over you. Show too much aggression and they will see it as a challenge." Linda looked at him seriously. "This mission is important, Jake. If we can make friends with the Kelvari, it opens up this entire sector for trade and cooperation." Jake understood. The galaxy was a big place and humanity was still new to it. Making allies was important. Making enemies could be deadly. The next morning, Jake joined the landing team. Along with him were Amy Peterson, a communications expert with bright red hair and a quick smile, and Dr. Richard Cole, a scientist who studied alien life. Richard was older, maybe 50, with thick glasses and a calm way of speaking that made everyone feel safe. The shuttle dropped through the atmosphere, shaking and rattling until they broke through the clouds. Below them, the Kelvari settlement spread across a valley. It was a mix of old stone buildings and new metal structures. Smoke rose from several places, and Jake could see figures moving in the streets. When the shuttle landed, a group of Kelvari were waiting. Jake stepped out first and had to tilt his head back to look at them. They were even bigger than he expected. Their fur ranged from golden brown to almost black, and their eyes were yellow and sharp. They moved like cats, graceful and dangerous. The leader stepped forward. His fur was dark with silver streaks, and he wore metal bands around his arms. "I am Huntmaster Vecker. You are the humans we have heard about. The warriors from Earth." Jake kept his voice steady. "I am Lieutenant Jake Morrison. We come in peace to learn about your people and share knowledge." Vecker looked him up and down, then showed his teeth. Jake hoped it was a smile. "You are smaller than I expected, but I have heard humans are tough. Come, we will show you our home." They walked through the settlement. Kelvari stopped what they were doing to stare at the humans. Jake noticed young ones peeking out from doorways, their ears flat against their heads. The adults kept the children behind them, protective and watchful. The buildings were interesting. Some looked ancient, carved from stone with patterns and symbols Jake did not recognize. Others were clearly new, made of metal and glass with modern technology. It was like 2 different time periods existed in the same place. Vecker led them to a large building near the center of the settlement. "You will stay here. Sarix will be your guide. If you need anything, ask her." He turned and walked away before Jake could say thank you. A young Kelvari female appeared in the doorway. She was smaller than the others, maybe 6 feet tall, with light brown fur and green eyes. She looked nervous. "I am Sarix," she said quietly. "Please come inside. I will show you your rooms." The building was comfortable enough. The rooms were large with high ceilings, probably built for Kelvari size. There were sleeping platforms, a common area, and a food preparation space. Sarix showed them everything quickly, her eyes darting around like she expected someone to yell at her. "Thank you," Amy said warmly. "This is very nice." Sarix looked surprised, like she was not used to being thanked. "I will return tomorrow morning. Rest well." She left quickly, almost running. Richard watched her go. "Did you notice her behavior?" "She seemed afraid." "I noticed," Linda said. "Let's keep our eyes open. There is something going on here that we do not understand yet." That evening, Jake could not sleep. He went outside and walked around the settlement. It was dark, but the Kelvari had lights along the main paths. He could hear sounds from the buildings, voices and movement. He found a quiet spot near a fountain and sat down. The night air was cool and smelled like the forest. Jake was thinking about home, about Earth and his family when he heard something. A small sound like crying. He stood up and followed the sound. It led him to a narrow space between two buildings. In the shadows, he saw two small shapes. Young Kelvary cubs huddled together. They looked up at him with wide, scared eyes. "It is okay," Jake said softly. "I will not hurt you." They did not run, but they pressed closer together. Jake could see them better now. They were thin, too thin. Their fur was dull and patchy. He could see their ribs through their skin. "When did you last eat?" he asked. The larger of the two, a male, lifted his chin. "We do not need your pity, human." "I am not offering pity. I am asking a question." The smaller one, a female, whispered something to her brother. He shook his head, but she spoke anyway. 2 days ago, we had a small piece of bread." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. "Why? Where are your parents?" "Our father is dead. Our mother is sick. We are not strong enough to earn more food." The male cub said this like he was stating a simple fact. "Not strong enough? You are children. We are weak. In Kelvari culture, the weak do not deserve resources. We understand this." Jake stared at them. They were maybe 8 or 9 years old in human terms, and they were starving because someone had decided they were not worth feeding. He opened his mouth to say something when he heard footsteps. Syrinx appeared at the end of the alley. She saw Jake with the cubs and her face went pale. "Please, you should not be here. If the council sees you talking to them, there will be trouble." "These are your siblings," Jake said. It was not a question. He could see the resemblance now. Syrinx nodded slowly. "Corin and Messa. I try to help them, but I have so little. And if I give them too much, the council will punish all of us." "This is wrong," Jake said. "This is our way," Syrinx replied, and there was so much pain in her voice. "Please, you must go. Forget you saw them. There is nothing you can do." Jake looked at Corin and Messa, at their thin bodies and proud faces. They were starving themselves rather than beg. They accepted their fate because that was what their culture told them to do. He thought about everything Linda had said about not interfering with alien cultures, about respecting their ways even when they seemed wrong, but he also thought about what it meant to be human, to see someone suffering and do nothing. "I will go," he said finally, "but I will not forget." Syrinx looked relieved. She ushered the cubs away, back into the shadows. Jake walked back to his quarters, his mind racing. Richard was still awake, reading on his datapad. He looked up when Jake entered. "Could not sleep either?" "I found something," Jake said. He told Richard about the cubs, about what Syrinx had said. Richard's face grew serious. "I have been noticing things too. Several of the younger Kelvari show signs of malnutrition. I thought maybe it was a disease, but this makes more sense. It is deliberate. We have to do something. Officially, we cannot interfere. The council is very strict about that. But," Richard paused, "there might be other ways. Less official ways." Jake sat down. "Tell me." They talked late into the night, forming a plan. It was risky. It might cause problems with the mission. But Jake could not stop seeing those two cubs, so young and so resigned to their fate. Tomorrow things would change. Jake would make sure of it. Jake woke up early the next morning with a plan in his mind. He went to the shuttle and used the food maker to prepare a meal. He kept it simple but filling. Protein bars that tasted like chocolate, some dried fruit, and a warm grain mix that Richard had checked to make sure Kelvari could eat it safely. He packed everything in a plain bag. Amy found him in the shuttle. "What are you doing?" He told her about the cubs. Her face went from shocked to angry to determined. "I am coming with you. This could cause trouble. I do not care. Those are children." Amy grabbed another bag and started adding food to it. Richard joined them a few minutes later. He did not say anything, just started helping. Within an hour, they had enough food for several meals. Linda walked in and stopped when she saw what they were doing. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she sighed. "I did not see this. Officially, I know nothing about it. But if anyone asks, you are conducting a cultural exchange study on Kelvari eating habits." Jake smiled. "Thank you, Captain. Do not thank me. Just be careful, and Jake, if this goes wrong, I will deny everything." But she was smiling when she said it. Syrinx came to guide them around the settlement that morning. Jake waited until they were alone, then asked her quietly, "Where do Corin and Messa spend their days?" Syrinx looked frightened. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I want to help them. You cannot. The council will not allow it. They have made their decision. I am not asking the council. I am asking you. Sarek studied his face for a long time. Finally, she spoke. They go to the water plant in the mornings. Nobody bothers them there. It is away from the main settlement, and the sound of the water covers their crying. The words hit Jake like a punch. These cubs went somewhere to cry where nobody would hear them. Thank you, he said. After Sarek's left them to explore on their own, Jake, Amy, and Richard headed toward the water plant. It was at the edge of the settlement, a building where they cleaned and recycled water for the whole community. The sound of flowing water was loud, covering other sounds. They found the cubs sitting on a low wall, watching the water move through clear pipes. When Korn and Mesa saw the humans approaching, they stood up quickly, ready to run. Wait, Jake said. He sat down on the ground, making himself less threatening. We brought something. We told you we do not want pity, Korn said. But his voice was weaker than last night. His sister swayed slightly, and Jake realized she was dizzy from hunger. This is not pity, Amy said gently. She sat down next to Jake. Among humans, we have a custom. When we meet new friends, we share food together. It is a sign of respect. We are not your friends. We are nothing, Mesa whispered. Richard opened the bag and took out a protein bar. He unwrapped it and took a bite. See, we eat together. All of us, it would be rude to refuse. Jake could see the struggle on Corin's face. Pride against hunger. The need to stay strong against the very real possibility of dying. Mesa made the decision for both of them. She stepped forward slowly like she expected someone to hit her. If it is your custom, she said quietly, then we do not want to be rude. Jake handed her a protein bar and a piece of fruit. She took them with shaking hands. Corin followed, trying to maintain dignity even though Jake could see how much he wanted to grab the food and run. They ate slowly at first, then faster. Jake watched them and felt his heart break a little. They were so hungry. When they had eaten about half of what Jake had brought, they slowed down. Their stomachs probably could not handle too much food at once after days of having almost nothing. Thank you, Mesa said. There were tears in her eyes. You do not have to thank us, Amy said. Friends help each other. Why do you call us friends? Corin asked. You just met us. We have nothing to offer you. Friendship is not about what you can offer, Jake said. It is about caring what happens to each other. I care what happens to you, but why? Corin looked genuinely confused. Jake thought about how to explain. Where I come from, we believe every person has value. Not because of how strong they are or how well they fight, but just because they exist. You have value, Corin. You have value, Mesa. You deserve to live and eat and be happy. That is not the Kelvari way, Mesa said softly. Maybe it could be, Richard suggested. Ways can change. They have changed for humans many times throughout our history. They sat together for a while longer, talking. Jake learned that Corin loved looking at the stars. Mesa liked helping injured animals. They were just kids with dreams and hopes, being crushed by a system that valued only one kind of strength. When it was time to go, Jake promised to come back the next day. The cubs watched them leave, and for the first time, Jake saw something other than resignation in their eyes. He saw hope. Over the next few days, Jake, Amy, and Richard visited the cubs every morning. They brought food and talked. The cubs started to look better. Their fur became shinier. They had more energy. Most importantly, they started to smile. Sarex noticed the change. She found Jake on the fourth day, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she said. I have not seen them look this healthy in months. But please be careful. The council watches everything. Let them watch, Jake said. But he knew she was right to worry. On the sixth day, everything changed. Jake was walking to the water plant with his bag of food when Huntmaster Vecker stepped out in front of him. The large Kelvari blocked the entire path, his face dark with anger. You have been feeding the weak cubs, Vecker said. It was not a question. Jake stood his ground even though every part of him wanted to step back. I have been sharing meals with friends. That is a human custom. You interfere with our ways. You make them weak by teaching them to depend on others instead of becoming strong themselves. They are children. They should not have to fight for the right to eat. That is exactly when they must learn, Vecker growled. Weakness spreads like disease. If we allow the weak to survive, they will have weak children, and our whole people will become soft. This is how we have survived for thousands of years. More Kelvari were gathering now, drawn by the confrontation. Jake saw Linda pushing through the crowd, her face tense. But before she could reach them, another voice spoke. "He does not make us weak." Everyone turned. Corin stood at the edge of the crowd with Mesa beside him. Sarix was behind them, looking terrified but determined. The cubs walked forward until they stood next to Jake. "The human teaches us that we have value," Corin said. His voice shook, but he did not back down. "He teaches us that strength comes in many forms." "You have no right to speak here, cub," Vecker snapped. "Then I will speak," Sarix said. She stepped forward, standing with her siblings. "I challenge the council's decision. I claim the right to care for my family as I see fit." A shocked murmur ran through the crowd. Vecker stared at her. "You know you cannot win that challenge. You are not strong enough to fight our champions." "Maybe fighting is not the only way to be strong," Sarix replied. "The human has shown us a different path." Jake felt proud of her even as he worried about what would happen next. Vecker looked angry enough to attack right there. But Linda stepped between them, her voice calm and commanding. "Huntmaster Vecker, may I speak?" Vecker turned his glare on her, but Linda did not flinch. She had faced down worse things than angry aliens. "My people have walked the path you are on," Linda said. "For thousands of years we believed that might made right. The strong ruled and the weak suffered. We fought endless wars. We lost countless lives. And you know what we learned?" "What?" Vecker asked, his voice cold. "That we were wrong. Our greatest strength did not come from defeating the weak. It came from protecting them, from valuing every life, from understanding that different people have different gifts, and all of those gifts make us stronger together." "Soft thinking," Vecker said. "This is why humans will fail." "Really?" Linda smiled. "Humans have fought and defeated species twice your size. We have survived in environments that would kill most races. We have spread across the galaxy in less than a century. And we did it not by being the strongest individually, but by working together, by protecting our weak, by valuing all our people." Richard stepped forward. "There is science behind this, Huntmaster. Species that practice cooperative care show higher rates of survival and innovation. Your culture has stagnated because you keep losing the very people who might think differently, who might solve problems in new ways." The crowd was growing larger. Jake saw older Kelvari who looked angry, but also younger ones who looked thoughtful. This conversation was challenging everything they had been taught. Vecker looked at Corin and Mesa, really looked at them, maybe for the first time. "What would you do if you were allowed to live? If you were given food and shelter without earning it through combat?" "It would not be without earning it," Corin said. "Just earning it differently. I want to study the stars, to help our people understand the galaxy. I want to learn medicine," Mesa added. "To heal those who are hurt." "Not hunters," Vecker said flatly. "No," Corin agreed. "But still useful. Still valuable." Vecker stood silent for a long moment. The entire settlement seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what the Huntmaster would decide. Jake could see the conflict on his face. Thousands of years of tradition against new ideas that challenged everything he knew. "This matter requires the full council," Vecker said finally. "We will meet tonight. Until then, no harm will come to these cubs. I give my word as Huntmaster." He turned and walked away, the crowd parting before him. Slowly, the other Kelvari dispersed, talking quietly among themselves. Jake noticed that many of the younger ones looked at Corin and Mesa with something new in their eyes. Not pity, but curiosity. Sarix grabbed Jake's arm. "Thank you. I do not know what will happen, but thank you for giving us a chance." "The council might say no," Jake warned her. "You should be prepared for that. I know. But even if they do, you have shown my siblings that there is another way to live, that they have worth. Nobody can take that away now." After she left with the cubs, Linda pulled Jake aside. "That was risky. I know. It could have gone very badly." "I know that too." Linda smiled slightly. "Good. Just making sure you understand what you started here. This is not just about two cubs anymore. You have challenged their entire social structure. Half the settlement probably wants to throw us off the planet right now." "And the other half?" Jake asked. "The other half is starting to ask questions. That might be even more dangerous." They spent the rest of the day preparing. Richard gathered data about cooperative species and their success rates. Amy compiled stories about human history, about how societies changed and grew stronger. Jake just thought about what he would say if given the chance to speak to the council. As the sun set, Sarix came to get them. The council has agreed to hear from you. This is unusual. Normally, outsiders would not be allowed. But Vecker said if we are considering changing our ways based on human ideas, we should hear those ideas properly. The council chamber was a large, circular room carved from stone. 12 Kilvari sat on raised platforms around the edge. Vecker was in the center, clearly the leader. The humans were led to the middle of the room where everyone could see them. Korin, Mesa, and Sarek stood off to one side, not quite part of the council but allowed to observe. Vekkor spoke first. Humans, you have disrupted our settlement with your ideas. Some on this council want you removed immediately. Others want to hear what you have to say. I have decided to listen. Speak and convince us why we should abandon ways that have kept us strong for generations. Jake stepped forward. He had thought about this moment all day, trying to find the right words. Now, standing before these powerful predators, he decided to speak from the heart. I do not ask you to abandon your ways, Jake said. I ask you to expand them. You value strength. So do humans. But we have learned that strength comes in many forms. The strongest person I ever knew was my grandmother. She was small and old, could not fight at all, but she survived a war, raised 6 children alone, and taught me that real strength is not about defeating others. It is about protecting them. One of the council members, a female with dark fur, spoke up. Soft words. What good is protection if you cannot fight? Protection requires the hardest fights of all, Linda said. Fighting to defeat an enemy is simple. Fighting to save someone, to put yourself in danger for another, that takes true courage. Human soldiers do not fight because they hate what is in front of them. They fight because they love what is behind them. Richard pulled up his data pad. Let me show you something. These are survival rates for different species across the galaxy. The species with the highest survival and expansion rates are not the strongest fighters. They are the ones who care for their young, their sick, and their weak. The ones who work together. He showed them charts and numbers. Some of the council members leaned forward, interested despite themselves. Now look at this, Richard continued. Innovation rates. New technology, new ideas, new solutions to problems. Again, cooperative species far outpace competitive ones. Do you know why? Tell us, Vecker said. Because when you only value one kind of strength, you lose all the people who think differently. Maybe the cub who cannot hunt would have discovered new farming methods. Maybe the weak fighter would have been a brilliant engineer. You will never know because you let them die. A younger council member spoke. But resources are limited. If we feed everyone, even the weak, we will not have enough for the strong. That is a lie you tell yourselves, Amy said firmly. I have seen your settlement. You have plenty of food. Your hunters bring back more than enough. The problem is not lack of resources. It is how you choose to distribute them. The council erupted in angry voices. Vecker raised his hand for silence. You speak boldly, human. I speak truth, Amy replied. You let children starve not because you must, but because you choose to. That is not strength. That is cruelty. Another council member stood. He was older, his fur gray with age. I am Elder Thorin. I have led hunts for 40 years. I have trained countless young Kelvari in the ways of combat. And I say this human speaks with wisdom we should consider. The chamber went quiet. Thorin was clearly respected. I have watched our ways for many years, Thorin continued. I have seen cubs with great potential die because they were not good at hunting. I have seen brilliant minds lost because they could not fight, and I have wondered in my private thoughts if we are making ourselves weaker by this practice. Heresy, another council member hissed. Is it? Thorin asked. Look at the humans. They are smaller than us, individually weaker, yet the galaxy fears them. Why? Because they work as one. Because they do not waste any of their people. Every human has a role, uses their gifts. We could learn from this. Vecker looked troubled. If we change this, everything changes. The strong will no longer have clear advantage. The hierarchy we have known for generations will crumble. Maybe it should, Jake said quietly. I have seen your hierarchy, Huntmaster. The strong eat well while children starve. The warriors have honor while the sick are abandoned. Is that really the society you want? It is the society that has kept us alive. Has it? Or has it just kept some of you alive while others died unnecessarily? The debate went on for hours. Some council members were completely against any change. Others, especially the younger ones, seemed interested in new ideas. Vecker sat in the center, listening to everything, his face unreadable. Finally, he raised his hand for silence again. I will hear from the cubs. Korin Mesa, step forward. The 2 cubs walked to the center of the room. They looked terrified but determined. Jake wanted to protect them, but he knew they needed to speak for themselves. "Tell us," Vecker said. "If we allow you to live, if we give you food and opportunity, what will you give back to the settlement?" Mesa spoke first. "I will study medicine. I will learn to heal injuries and cure sickness. I will save lives that would otherwise be lost." "And you, Corin?" The young male cub stood straighter. "I will study the stars and the worlds beyond our own. I will learn about other species, about technology, about knowledge that could make our whole settlement stronger. I will bring new ideas." "Pretty words," one council member said. "But words are easy. Proof is hard." "Then test us," Corin said boldly. "Give us 1 year. Let us prove our worth. If we fail, if we contribute nothing, then your old ways were right. But if we succeed, if we bring value to the settlement in our own way, then perhaps there are cubs like us who deserve the same chance." The council members looked at each other. Jake could see the idea taking hold. A test was something they understood. A challenge with clear terms, Vecker stood. "I will speak with my fellow council members in private. You will wait outside." The humans, Sarix, and the cubs were led to a room outside the chamber. They sat in tense silence. Mesa leaned against her sister, exhausted from stress and fear. Corin tried to look brave, but Jake could see his hands shaking. "You did well in there," Jake told them. "Both of you. You spoke with courage. What if they say no?" Mesa asked. "Then we will figure out something else," Jake promised. "I will not let you starve." "You may not have a choice," Sarix said quietly. "If the council forbids it and you defy them, they will ask all humans to leave Kelvar Prime. Your mission will fail." Jake looked at Linda. She met his eyes and nodded slowly. They both knew what that nod meant. The mission was important, but some things were more important than missions. They waited for 2 hours. Finally, the door opened and Vecker appeared. His face was still unreadable. "The council has made a decision," he said. "Come." They filed back into the chamber. The council members sat in their places, their expressions ranging from angry to thoughtful to resigned. Vikor stood in the center. "We have debated long and hard. This is not an easy decision. Our ways are old and proven, but the humans raise points we cannot easily dismiss." He paused, looking at each person in the room. "We have decided to attempt an experiment. Corin and Mesa will be given 1 full year. They will receive adequate food and the resources they need to pursue their chosen paths. At the end of that year, they will present their accomplishments to the council. If they have contributed real value to the settlement, we will consider extending this opportunity to other cubs who struggle under our current system." Jake felt relief flood through. Jake looked at Linda. She gave him the smallest nod. The decision was his to make. He thought about his comfortable life on the horizon, about the routine of ship life, about seeing new worlds from orbit. Then he looked at Corin and Mesa, at the hope shining in their eyes, at the possibility of real change. "I will stay," he said. The council chamber filled with whispered conversations. Some council members looked pleased. Others looked worried or angry. Faker simply nodded as if he had expected this answer. "It is decided then. The human will stay for 1 year. He will advise us and help the cubs prove their worth. At the end of this time, we will evaluate and decide the future of our ways." Vecker looked around the room. "This meeting is ended." As everyone filed out, Sarix hugged Jake tightly. "Thank you. You have given them a chance at life. They still have to prove themselves," Jake reminded her. "And that will not be easy. I know. But now they have hope. That is more than they had yesterday." The next morning, Linda and the others prepared to leave on the horizon. Amy hugged Jake goodbye, tears in her eyes. "You better stay safe down here. If these predators give you any trouble, you call us immediately." Richard shook his hand. "I have sent you all the medical data I have on Kelvari biology. I will keep researching and send you updates. If Mesa truly wants to study medicine, she will need proper information." Linda was last. "You have done something remarkable here, Jake. But the hard part is just beginning. Changing a culture is not easy. There will be resistance, anger, maybe even violence. Watch your back." "I will, Captain." "And Jake?" "I am proud of you." Not everyone would give up a year of their life for 2 alien children they just met. They are not just alien children anymore. They are my friends. After the horizon left, Jake moved into a small building near the water plant. It was simple but comfortable. Sarix helped him get settled, bringing blankets and cooking supplies. "The council has assigned you a small income," she said. "Enough to buy food and supplies. and they have given Corin and Mesa a proper food allowance. It is not much, but it is more than they have had in months. The first few days were awkward. Jake was the only human on the entire planet, surrounded by predators who were not entirely sure they wanted him there. Some Kelvari avoided him. Others stared openly. A few younger ones approached him with questions about Earth and humanity. But Jake's main focus was on the cubs. Corin wanted to study astronomy, so Jake got him books and star charts. He taught him how to use a basic telescope and how to record observations. Mesa wanted to learn medicine, which was harder. Richard sent detailed information about Kelvari anatomy and common injuries, and Jake spent hours helping her understand it. The hard part is not learning, Mesa said one day. It is that nobody takes me seriously. When I try to help someone who is hurt, they push me away. They say I am too young, too weak. Then you need to prove them wrong, Jake said. Keep learning. Keep practicing. When the opportunity comes, you will be ready. That opportunity came sooner than expected. A hunting party returned to the settlement with an injured member. A young male had fallen from a cliff and broken his leg badly. The settlement's usual healer, an old Kelvari named Druman, examined him and shook his head. The bone is shattered in many places. He will likely lose the leg, perhaps his life. Mesa had been watching from the crowd. She pushed forward. Let me help. I have been studying bones and how they heal. Druman looked at her with disdain. You are a cub. You know nothing. I know that if you cut off his leg, he will bleed to death. The major artery is too close to where you want to cut. But if you set the bone properly and keep it still, it might heal. Might? You want me to risk his life on might? The injured Kelvari groaned in pain. His name was Vorak, and Jake had met him once. He was only about 20 years old, barely an adult. Please, Vorak gasped. Let her try. I do not want to lose my leg, Drummond snorted. Fine. When you die, it will not be my fault. He walked away. Mesa looked terrified but determined. She turned to Jake. I need your help. I cannot do this alone, Jake nodded. Tell me what you need. For the next 6 hours, Jake assisted while Mesa worked. She was amazing. Her small hands were steady as she cleaned the wound, set the broken bone pieces, and created a splint to hold everything in place. She used techniques Richard had taught her, combined with her natural understanding of Kelvari anatomy. When she was done, Vorak's leg was straight and properly aligned. He was weak from pain and blood loss, but alive. Now comes the hard part, Mesa said. He must keep the leg completely still for at least 6 weeks. No walking, no moving. If he disturbs the bone, it will not heal properly. Vorak looked at his splinted leg. You really think this will work? I think it has a much better chance than cutting it off, Mesa replied. Word spread quickly through the settlement. The cub that everyone thought was useless had just saved a young hunter's leg. Maybe his life. Kelvari, who had ignored Mesa before, now looked at her with new eyes. Drummond came back the next day to check on Vorak. He examined Mesa's work carefully, his expression unreadable. The bone setting is good, he said finally. Better than I could have done with my old hands. Where did you learn this? The human's friend sent me information, and Jake helped me practice on small animals first. Drummond looked at Jake, then back at Mesa. If the leg heals properly, I will teach you more. We could use another healer in this settlement. Mesa's face lit up. It was the first time any adult Kelvari had offered to teach her anything. Corin was having his own breakthrough. He had been mapping the stars every night, recording their positions and movements. One evening, he noticed something unusual. A pattern in how certain stars moved that did not match the established charts. He showed Jake. I think there is something out there. Maybe a planet, maybe something else, but it is affecting the gravity, pulling things slightly off course. Have you told anyone? Jake asked. Who would listen to me? Vecker might. Especially if this could be important. They went to the Huntmaster together. Vecker listened to Corin's explanation, looking at the charts and calculations the young cub had made. If you are right, Vecker said slowly, this could be a new world. Resources we did not know existed. It could be, Corin agreed, but I need better equipment to be sure. A proper telescope, not just the basic one Jake got me. And if we get you this equipment and you are wrong, Corin lifted his chin, then I will have wasted your resources. But if I am right, I will have found something valuable. Is that not worth the risk? Vecker smiled, showing his teeth. You have courage, cub. I will get you the equipment, but you better be right. 3 weeks later, with a proper telescope, Corin confirmed his discovery. There was indeed a planet in a nearby system, one rich in minerals that the Kelvari needed for their technology. The discovery changed everything. Suddenly, the settlement was talking about new mining operations, about expansion, about resources that would benefit everyone, and they were talking about the young cub who had found it all by looking at the stars. But not everyone was happy with these changes. A group of older Kelvari, led by a council member named Draxus, openly opposed what they saw as a weakness infecting their culture. "We are becoming soft," Draxus declared at a public gathering. "We honor cubs who have proven nothing. We waste resources on the weak. This human has poisoned our ways with his soft thinking." Jake was at the gathering. He stood up to respond, but Sarex beat him to it. "These cubs have proven more than many hunters twice their age," she said loudly. Mesa saved Vorak's leg. "Corin found a new world." "What have you discovered lately, Draxus?" the crowd murmured. Draxus glared at her. "You dare challenge me?" "I dare to speak truth." "You call them weak, but they have contributed real value to our settlement. That was the test the council set. They are passing it." "The test is not over," Draxus snarled. "There are still months left, and I predict they will fail. Cubs like this always fail when real pressure is applied." He looked directly at Corin and Mesa. The threat was clear. Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Reacting emotionally would only make things worse. That night, Jake found Mesa crying behind her home. "What is wrong?" "Vorak's leg. It is not healing right. The bone is infected. He has a fever. Everything I did might be for nothing. Did you tell Druman? He is trying to help, but he does not know what to do either. If Vorak dies, everyone will blame me. They will say I was foolish to try." Jake thought quickly. "Richard sent information about infections, right? About how to treat them." "Yes, but the medicine he described, we do not have it here. What if we could make it?" "Do you have the ingredients?" They spent all night researching, mixing, testing. Some of the plants that grew near the settlement had properties similar to the antibiotics Richard had described. Mesa worked with Druman, and together they created a treatment. It was risky. They had never tried this before. But Vorak was dying, and doing nothing meant certain death. They gave Vorak the medicine. For 2 days, nothing changed. His fever stayed high. He drifted in and out of consciousness. Draxus made sure everyone knew that the cub's treatment was failing. On the 3rd day, the fever broke. Vorak woke up clear-headed and hungry. The infection was retreating. By the 6th week, Vorak was walking with only a slight limp. The seasons changed on Kelvar Prime. What had been warm days turned cooler as the planet moved through its yearly cycle. Jake had been on the planet for 8 months now, and he barely recognized the settlement anymore. Mesa worked alongside Druman every day, treating injuries and illnesses. The old healer had fully accepted her as his student, and they had developed new treatments together that combined traditional Kelvari medicine with knowledge from Richard's research. Several lives had been saved because of their work. Corin had become the settlement's official astronomer. His discovery of the mineral-rich planet had led to 3 successful mining expeditions. The settlement's wealth had increased significantly, and Corin was planning even more ambitious surveys of nearby systems. But the changes went deeper than just 2 cubs. Other young Kelvari who had struggled under the old system were finding their own paths. One became an engineer and improved the settlement's water systems, making them more efficient. Another discovered a talent for teaching, working with the youngest cubs to help them learn reading and math. The settlement was thriving in ways it never had before. Production was up. Innovation was happening. Even the hunters had to admit that having skilled healers meant fewer deaths and faster recovery from injuries. Still, Draxus and his followers resisted. They had about a quarter of the settlement's support, mostly older Kelvari who feared change. They looked for any opportunity to prove that the new ways were wrong. That opportunity came during a harsh winter storm. A hunting party got caught in the mountains, trapped by heavy snow and freezing temperatures. Among them was Veker himself. When word reached the settlement, Draxus immediately took charge. "We send our strongest hunters to rescue them. Only the best, only those proven in combat." But the storm was getting worse. The rescue party would need to move fast through dangerous terrain. Jake had an idea. "What if we approach this differently?" he suggested at the emergency meeting. "What if we send people with different skills? Corin knows the star positions and can navigate even in the storm. Mesa can treat injuries on site. The engineer can assess any structural dangers. You would send cubs into a deadly storm? Draxus demanded. This proves my point. Your soft ways will get people killed. My way gives the trapped hunters the best chance of survival, Jake countered. Your strongest fighters might find them, but they cannot treat frostbite or navigate in zero visibility or handle unexpected problems. We need a team with diverse skills. The council was split. Half wanted to follow tradition. Half wanted to try Jake's approach. Finally, a young council member named Kess spoke up. Why not both? Send the traditional rescue party, but also send the specialized team. Whoever reaches the hunters first succeeds, it was agreed. Draxus led a team of 6 powerful hunters into the storm. Jake led a smaller team with Corin, Mesa, Sarix, and 2 others with useful skills. The race was on. The storm was brutal. Wind and snow cut visibility to almost nothing. The traditional rescue party used brute force, pushing through the storm with pure determination. But they quickly got lost, unable to see familiar landmarks. Jake's team moved slower but smarter. Corin used his knowledge of star positions, glimpsed between the clouds to maintain their direction. When they hit a frozen river that was too dangerous to cross, the engineer found a safe path around it. They worked together, each person contributing their specific skills. 6 hours into the rescue, they found the trapped hunters. They were huddled in a small cave trying to stay warm. Vecker's leg was badly hurt and 2 others had serious frostbite. They would not have survived another night. Mesa immediately started treating injuries. She worked calmly and efficiently, stabilizing Vecker's leg and treating the frostbite with techniques she had learned. Corin calculated the safest route back to the settlement. The engineer rigged a simple sled to carry the injured. They started back just as Draxus's team finally found the cave. The traditional hunters looked exhausted and half-frozen themselves. They had gotten lost twice and had no medical supplies or navigation tools. Draxus stared at the scene. His expression was a mix of anger, shame, and something else. Maybe understanding. You found them, he said to Jake. We all found them, Jake replied. But we were able to help them because we brought the right skills. The journey back was hard but successful. When they reached the settlement, the entire population had gathered to wait. They cheered when they saw Vecker alive, being carried on the sled with Mesa still working to keep him stable. That night, Vecker called an emergency council meeting. His leg was bandaged and he could not stand, but his voice was strong. I have seen with my own eyes what the new ways can accomplish, he said. These cubs saved my life. The specialized team succeeded where traditional methods struggled. I can no longer deny that there are many kinds of strength. Draxus stood up. For a moment, Jake thought he would argue. But instead, the old Kelvari bowed his head. I was wrong, Draxus said quietly. I have spent months looking for proof that the old ways were better. But today I saw the truth. If we had only sent traditional hunters, Vecker would be dead. These cubs, who I called weak and useless, saved our huntmaster's life. I was a fool to oppose this change. It was a stunning admission. The council chamber was completely silent. I propose we end the test early, Draxus continued. Corin and Mesa have proven their worth beyond any doubt. More than that, they have shown us a better path forward. I vote to make this change permanent and to extend the opportunity to all cubs who wish to pursue different paths. One by one, the other council members agreed. Even those who had been skeptical could not argue with the results. The vote was unanimous. Corin and Mesa stood in the center of the chamber, hardly believing what was happening. Sarix was crying openly, her tears of joy running down her fur. Vecker smiled at the cubs. You have changed our entire culture. You have made us stronger, not by being strong yourselves in the traditional way, but by showing us what we were missing. The council officially recognizes that there are many paths to value, many ways to contribute, many kinds of strength. The settlement celebrated that night. For the first time in their history, the feast had no hierarchy. Everyone sat together, shared food equally, and talked about the future with excitement instead of fear. Jake sat with Corin and Mesa, watching the celebration. The cubs looked different now. Healthier, yes, but also confident. They carried themselves with pride, knowing their worth. What will you do now? Mesa asked Jake. Your year is almost over. You could go back to your ship. I could, Jake agreed. But I have been thinking. There are other settlements on Kelvar Prime. Other places that still follow the old ways. Maybe they could use some help changing too. You would stay longer? Corin asked. If you will have me, I have grown to love this place. These people. You. Sarix joined them, sitting down with a plate of food. The council has been talking. They want to offer you permanent residency on Kelvar Prime. You would be the first non-Kelvari to be granted that honor. Jake thought about it. He thought about the horizon sailing between stars. He thought about his old life, comfortable and routine. Then he looked around at the settlement, at the changes he had helped create, at the lives he had helped save. I accept, he said. The next morning, Jake sent a message to Linda on the horizon. He explained everything that had happened, the changes in Kelvari culture and his decision to stay. Her response came back a few hours later. I knew you would stay. You have found your purpose, Jake. We will miss you on the horizon, but we are proud of what you have accomplished. You have done more than just help two cubs. You have changed an entire civilization for the better. That is something few people can say. Over the following months, word spread to other Kelvari settlements. Some were resistant, clinging to traditional ways, but others were curious. They sent representatives to see what had changed. When they saw the thriving settlement, the innovation, the reduced mortality rates, and the general happiness of the population, many wanted to adopt similar changes. Jake traveled to these settlements, along with Corin, Mesa, and other Kelvari who had embraced the new ways. They shared their experiences, taught new methods, and helped guide other communities through the transition. It was not always easy. Some settlements rejected the changes entirely. Others had violent conflicts between traditionalists and reformers. But slowly, steadily, Kelvari culture began to shift across the entire planet. A year after the rescue in the storm, Jake stood in the main settlement square. It was the anniversary of Corin and Mesa's successful test, and the settlement was holding a special ceremony. Vekor, fully healed and strong again, addressed the crowd. 1 year ago, we agreed to try something new. We agreed to test whether strength could come in different forms. Today, we know the answer. We are stronger than we have ever been. Our population is healthier. Our technology is advancing. Our future is brighter. He gestured to Corin and Mesa. These two showed us the way, but they are not alone anymore. Look around you. How many cubs who would have died under the old system are now contributing to our society? How many new discoveries have been made? How many lives saved? The crowd cheered. Jake saw cubs of all types in the audience. Healers, teachers, engineers, astronomers,